And then there's a broadcast that I'm going to review. Prepare for a potential false flag to be blamed on Iran. Uploaded by the Conscience Resistance, premiered May 8, 2019. And recently, we see 4 hours ago, today is the 2nd of June 2019, Sunday, 12:47. And about 5 hours ago, Israel strikes Syria after rockets fired at Golan Heights. And because of the Iron Dome missile shield, we usually see more casualties on the side of the Palestinians than on the side of the Israelis, basically. And 190 protesters were killed in Gaza. So how many people know about that? But let's begin with the intro, and I'm taking it from pretty far back. Basically, it's just a short piece of text. So let's read this. Let's go.
People were conditioned by fake truth tellers, controlled opposition, shills, with lies mixed with important truths cleverly constructed to hide who really did it and what's really happening, programmed not to want to be truth tellers anymore. Some escaped their intricate web of lies, and here we are, true if truth, diversity for all countries but Israel, where 5G is produced but not used, put it in airplane mode or keep it away from you, selfie stick, when doing live broadcasts. Destroy 5G is realize 5G mobile network auction by mid-2019, Reuters. When I search on Iran WW3 with Google, 9 of 10 search results shown on the page are links to express.co.uk articles. When I select all instead of news, it shows 3 top stories, all express.co.uk and 4 other express.co.uk links, 7 in total, and some links to YouTube videos. Trump's verbal attacks against Iran risk dragging U.S. into World War III. Express.co.uk May 24, 2019. When I search on Iran WW3 - express.co.uk to leave out links to that website to find some YouTube videos that may be interesting. U.S. officials on WW3 alert. Footage reveals disturbing tests at Iran's secret military base. 5,344 views. Grand Supreme News May 27, 2019. Iran has no nuke and Khomeini declared a fatwa on nukes, a fatwa by Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of Iran, against the acquisition, development and use of nuclear weapons dates back to the mid-1990s, though its first public announcement is reported to have occurred on October 2003, which was followed by an official statement at a meeting of the International Atomic Energy Agency, IAEA, in Vienna 2 years later on August 2005. Wiki/Ali_Khamenei %27s_fatwa_ against nuclear_ weapons. A fatwa is a non-binding legal opinion on a point of Islamic law, Sharia, given by a qualified jurist in response to a question posed by a private individual, judge or government. A jurist issuing fatwas is called a mufti and the act of issuing fatwas is called ifta. Fatwas have played an important role throughout Islamic history, taking on new forms in the modern era, so it's just a non-binding legal opinion, not a codified law. So there is no way that these tests could be disturbing in any way. YouTube is also flooded with fake news and people copying the fake news text and linking to it. War with Iran WW3 2,469 views. The Doom Show The Last Train Out published on May 15, 2019. War with Iran could lead to WW3, 5,429 views. SEMF 2000 published on May 15, 2019. Destroy 5G, Prevent World War III, 5need.nl. Scientists and doctors warn of potential serious health effects of 5G. 5GAPHEAL.tu 5G leads to massive increase of mandatory exposure to wireless radiation, cancer, cell phone radiation with a higher frequency. Besides the fact that microwaves cause lumping red blood cells, DNA breaks, chromosomal damage and tumors on the side where they keep their cancer cell phones to their heads as we see on the MRI scans. It needs to be taken into consideration that pulsed microwave signals may be used to entrain the human brain to facilitate easier manipulation with scalar technology as described in the Malik patent, the apparatus to remotely monitor and alter brainwaves. NSA equals no such agency. CIA equals chemtrails in America. FBI equals Frame Bureau International. Framed by investigators, female body inspectors, effed by investigators. You'll have to Google it. The Illuminati, Templar Jesuit, Front Organistaian, YouTube, Messiah, the Neural Network King, Busted, Confusing, Focusing, Concentrating, Enlightening, Clearing Up. I have no opinion about the Mandela effect and predictive programming yet. Matrix movie satanic inversion. They do not want to destroy Zion but the rest of the world? The only humans live in Zion idea is based on the fictional city in the Matrix films. It is the last human city on the planet Earth after a cataclysmic nuclear war between mankind and sentient machines, which resulted in artificial life forms dominating the world. Chess is a genocidal game because knights are horses and dehumanization is part of the 10 phases of genocide. Magic magnet. Unite all countries to bestow maximum fulfillment upon humanity. peaceinspace.blogs.com.
So that piece about the Matrix is on Wiki. Don't know exactly which Wiki article, but if you Google it, no doubt you will find it. Wikipedia, the CIA Vatican edited encyclopedia.
Updated. Model Statute and World Treaty Conference banning 5G, do directed energy and neurotic mind control weapons. The 5G infrastructure would pose a threat to our planet's atmosphere. Network implementation will require the deployment of many, short lifespan satellites via suborbital rockets propelled by hydrocarbon rocket engines. According to this 2000, the 5G infrastructure would pose a threat to our planet's atmosphere. Network implementation will require the deployment of many, short lifespan satellites via suborbital rockets propelled by hydrocarbon rocket engines. According to this 2010 California study, launching too many of these babies will vomit enough black carbon into the atmosphere to pollute global atmospheric conditions, affecting distribution of ozone and temperature. Worse, solid-state rocket exhaust contains chlorine, an ozone-destroying chemical. How can any government seriously concerned about climate change allow for this? Stop 5G.whynotnews.eu. It is well-known cancer cell phone radiation, microwaves, heat up the Earth's atmosphere as well. Cancer-causing microwave ovens are an offense, it's true. Cancer microwave ovens are best known for heating up matter, mainly food. Unsafety standards make people believe otherwise. It is known the microwaves heat up the air and our body temperature and contribute to global warming. Hirata A., Matsuyama S., Shizawa T. 2000. Temperature rises in the human eye exposed to M waves in the frequency range 0.6 to 6 GHz. IEEE Trans, Electroman, Compat. 42, 386 393. Does anybody know how much the UMTS, GSM, Bluetooth and Wi-Fi LANs heat up our environment exactly? By how many degrees Celsius? Stop UMTS.nl. If it controls our minds, no one of us would attempt to switch it off. In theory. Synonyms for anarchy: chaos, confusion, disorder, hostility, nihilism, rebellion, riot, turmoil, unrest, disorganization, disregard, misrule, revolution, mob rule, non-government, reign of terror. Antonyms for anarchy: calm, harmony, method, order, organization, peace, system, lawfulness, rule. Israel is building a nuclear weapon, is that correct? Annex nation, GGG. 75% of us are mulatto, 25% of us are black and white. Because India and China each contain 4 times the amount of citizens the US has, 75% of all humans on the planet Earth are mulatto. Top 3 countries in the world by population, 2018, 1. China 1.4 billion, 2. India 1.4 billion, 3. US 327 million. It's very hard to find any statistics showing what percentage of us is mulatto, Black and white with Google. It's like Google wants to hide these factual statistics for some reason. Israel becoming safe haven for pedophiles with laws that allow any Jews to legally return. Activists claim. Jewish Community Watch says 32 pedophiles moved from countries around the world to Israel over past decade. Activists fear Israel is becoming a safe haven for pedophiles thanks to the country's unique law of return for the world's Jewish people. A Jewish person from anywhere across the globe can be fast-tracked for citizenship in Israel, as well as their spouse, children and grandchildren. A 1954 amendment to the law bans a person with a criminal past, likely to endanger public welfare, but campaigners say sex abusers are slipping through the net. Independent.co.uk, November 30, 2016. Global warming. Israel, where the environment heating and cancer-causing 5G is produced but not used. Destroy 5G, prevent World War III. Among the 2019 Montreux Bilderberg participants we find Kissinger, Henry A., USA, Chairman, Kissinger Associates Incorporated; Kushner, Jared, USA, Senior Advisor to the President, the White House; Petraeus, David H., USA, Chairman, KKR Global Institute. He served as Director of the Central Intelligence Agency from September 6, 2011, until his resignation on November 9, 2012. Rutt, Mark, NLD, Prime Minister. Bilderbergmeetings.org. Pompeo and Kushner head to Bilderberg meeting, a mysterious gathering of the global elite. WashingtonPost.com. Pompeo is not on the list, so that means the Bilderbergmeetings.org list is not complete. Soros, Rockefeller and Rothschild are not of the list. If you're not on the list, you are not coming in. Global warfare. We're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years: Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan and Iran. Democracy Now! March 2, 2007, Polish Acts of Atrocity Against the German Minority in Poland, 2nd edition with important and a 5.0 out of 5 stars. Amazon.com, Moderatorium. Is ISIS going to do another false flag attack in the US like the WTC attack to kick off the Third Jesuit World War? Soros, Rockefeller and Rothschild are not on the list. If you're not on the list, you are not coming in. Global warfare. We're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years: Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan and Iran. Democracy Now! March 2, 2007, Polish Acts of Atrocity Against the German Minority in Poland, 2nd edition with important and a 5.0 out of 5 stars. Amazon.com, Moderatorium. Is ISIS going to do another false flag attack in the US like the WTC attack to kick off the Third Jesuit World War? What do the following events have in common? 9/11 World Trade Center, Pentagon. London subway bombings, 7/75, Oklahoma City bombing. The Estonia catastrophe, 852 dead, Norway Oslo attack, 77 dead, Sandy Hook Elementary School. Aurora, Colorado, Batman shooting Taft Union High School, Jan 10, 2013, Boston Marathon, April 15, 2013. Answer: live terror drills were conducted. Same scenario, same day, either on location or very close. The media ignores this completely. They are terror drills that went live. This is no conspiracy theory, it's a conspiracy fact. Facebook.com/citizens.action.network. This is no conspiracy, it is fact. Was changed by me into, this is no conspiracy theory, it's a conspiracy fact, because the text this is no conspiracy, it is fact suggests that conspiracy facts do not exist, and, of course, they do exist. Twitter.com/#/falseflag. Ling equals N. With all the funding they have given terrorists to destabilize countries to steal their cancer oil, how can we expect anything else but another false flag attack? The illusion has to be kept going for a number of reasons: to have an excuse for their Third Jesuit World War and to reduce the global population, to give the government more power and the people less. And there are 2 ways they could create their planned world war to impose their totalitarian global government. 1. ISIS attacks in the US and other countries around the world. 2. A false flag type of event comparable to the sinking of the Lusitania, False Flag 1, 1915 Sinking the Lusitania, YouTube. CIA-funded terrorist attacks are usually not seen as false flag attacks. The Committee of 300 are also involved in funding terrorists and attacks, so check them out online as well. They are the subversive body of the Club of Rome. Taiwan Taitu Tattoo. Israel strikes Syria after rockets fired at Golan Heights. News.com 4 hours ago.
So yeah, my father came in earlier during the broadcast, but I can turn the level in the room down. So there are two different types of attacks. ISIS attacks in the US. Recently, a video of Baghdadi, Bakr al-Baghdadi, supposed ISIS leader, appeared. Can anybody prove to me Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is not a Mossad agent? 25 million on his head, reward for justice program. Where can I claim my reward if I have info about his whereabouts? He could be in Israel or the US if he is an agent, perhaps in underground cities made with a nuclear power drill called the Subterrane. If what so many claim is true that Baghdadi is a Mossad agent, he could also be hiding in Israel. What else did I write? Will new ISIS attacks be a reason to bomb Iran and, quote, take the oil, unquote, like Trump claimed he would do? And when I click on something, then it's supposed to appear. The previous time, when I clicked on the... Oh, but the CPU is at 100%, so that might cause the problem. So let's see, turn off my webcam, it might save some CPU. The connection may not be optimal. So yeah, let's listen to Trump. I was gonna get that sample.
Take back the oil. Once you go over and take back that oil, they have nothing.
But how do you take it back?
Right, you have to go in. You have to go in.
With ground troops?
Well, you bomb the hell out of them, and then you encircle it, and then you go in, and you let Mobil go in, and you let our great oil companies go in.
Right.
Once you take that oil, they have nothing left. I'm going to create a third world war to build a temple in Jerusalem for my judge and to reduce the global population to 500 million.
So that was my broadcast about if World War III will come to pass, what could trigger it. And recently a new video of Bakr al-Baghdadi cropped up. All mainstream media outlets all seem to agree that the authenticity of the new ISIS leader video cannot be confirmed. A false flag type of event a la the Gulf of Tonkin incident or the sinking of the Lusitania. And then it goes into that Gulf of Tonkin, etc. Could the 28 EU membership states' rejection of Israeli sovereignty over the Golan and not accepting Trump's proclamation trigger a world war somehow? Watch all 28 EU membership states reject Israeli sovereignty over the Golan and slam Trump's proclamation. HD streamed April 9th, 2019. On my YouTube channel, try Something.Vegetarian. And people can also write comments in the chat, and I can display them in this broadcast. So if anybody writes something in the chat, it will appear on screen. Okay, and you can Skype ProLogic999 if you know about their next false flag attack. And there can also be another type of event like this one. So the principle of a false flag is that they do it under a false flag, under the flag of the enemy, for example. So funding terrorists and letting them do an attack is in fact also an attack orchestrated by US citizens, intelligence agencies usually, that also fund these terrorists, according to sources online. And people have not been able to disprove these things to me. They always try to ridicule the truth because they want to get away with what they've done and shift the blame from the innocent, from the guilty to the innocent, because they're not innocent themselves. So, and the cancer car horn stalking network is part of that. That's worldwide. People honking the cancer car horns as part of tyrannizing the targeted individuals into submission. So they may very well be satanic pedophiles or Muslim Christian pedophiles that are also stalking children and involved in child trafficking. So usually the Jesuits pretend, and the speech errors are made with synthetic telepathy to make it sound funny and insane, but in reality, of course, these things are proven, and I'm a conspiracy factist, not a conspiracy theorist. So yeah, I think that 9/11 was real, and London subway bombings as well. Norway, Oslo attacks, 77 dead, etc. So false flag doesn't necessarily indicate a fake attack. But they've started using the term false flag for that as well, I think. But with the WTC, for example, I worked out that it's possible that the video was prepared. For example, the cancer-causing Tachinales plane going through the building, coming out the other end with its nose intact, and according to some people that's impossible because the nose of these cancer-causing Tachinales planes is very brittle, very weak, and it cannot go through a building. But I figured if it goes exactly in between two floors, then it can slide through to the other end and come out the other end, theoretically. So, and things like that alarm by controlling people in my environment, it's all part of the show that they do to distract people and to make my broadcast go haywire. Okay, so first I wanna watch this video to review this. Prepare for a potential false flag to be blamed on Iran, the conscience resistance. And there are not many people reporting about this idea. And around 9/11, etc., there were loads of people reporting about it. So yeah, people that report about false flags get their YouTube channel removed, and web pages are removed as well, such as nothisinfo.com, and you can Google that. But you cannot open that web page without catchpages.com. So people can use catchpages.com to retrieve the now removed websites and also Facebook pages. For example, Tommy Robinson claiming that he's a Mossad agent. You can use cachepages.com for that. On his Facebook page that's now removed, of course. So I'm not claiming that they were, and I reported about it, and that may also have been the main reason for removing my channel. So I'm not going to do that in this broadcast. This is all about the real attacks, not about the fake ones, if there are any.
Hey friends, this is Derek Bros with the Conscious Resistance Network, and today we are going to talk about Iran, and we're going to talk about the potential for false flag attacks. Before we do that, I want to remind you guys, bookmark theconsciousresistance.com, scroll down here, sign up for our email newsletter, follow us on all of our alternative platforms, Steam it, the Discord channel, our Remind text app. You can follow us on YouTube or support on Patreon. And also I would like to remind you guys that all this month we are promoting our Divest from Facebook campaign. Join Minds. You can come over here to minds.com/theconsciousresistance network to get all of our latest content, including exclusive reports that we are putting on Minds first, including an article that I will have coming up later today. So get plugged in there. We're growing steadily. And if you want to support in other ways, you can always check out our shirts and buy some shirts. I've just shipped out shirt orders for people who have recently ordered some, so you'll get those coming soon. And yeah, let's dive into the news.
So I haven't checked yet if they are possibly controlled opposition, fake resistance to round up real resistance. And you can check that for yourselves, but the amount of views, 1,200 and 108 likes, 4 dislikes, suggests that there could be real resistance.
News now. Why the U.S. suddenly decided to send an aircraft carrier and bombers to check Iran. In case you guys haven't heard about this at all, in the last couple days it was announced that the U.S. military was sending different aircraft carriers, massive machines, towards Iran because they said they had intelligence that Iran might attempt to attack the United States, which doesn't make any sense at all once you really look into it. This is one of the aircraft carriers, the USS Abraham Lincoln. Now it says the U.S. received credible intelligence that Iran was plotting an attack against U.S. interests, not against the U.S. necessarily, but U.S. interests, including U.S. military forces and civilians in the Persian Gulf. The Pentagon then approved a U.S. Central Command request for additional firepower, and the White House on Sunday announced the redirection of a U.S. Navy carrier strike group and a U.S. Air Force bomber task force to deter Iran with the threat of unrelenting force in response to an attack. Now, for those who've been paying attention, this is something that we've seen coming up, namely because of this man, National Security Advisor John Bolton, who's been around since George W. Bush's day, has long wanted to attack Iran. We also know, for those who are truth seekers and have been awake and aware, know that after 9/11, General Wesley Clark talked about how there was a plan to go into Iraq, Afghanistan, Sudan, Syria, and then eventually Iran. So they've been having this plan for like almost 2 decades, if not longer. And Acting Secretary of Defense Patrick Shanahan said this, quote, represents a prudent repositioning of assets in response to indications of a credible threat by Iranian regime forces.
Universal Peace says fake ISIS attacks are covered by nodisinfo.com. They were banned by YouTube. Okay, that's a little bit off point for the message thread.
So that's as relevant talking about it, and that was my channel Universal Peace. So it's just a warning. They consider it triggering, it's hate speech if you claim these attacks are false flag attacks, that are not real attacks. I mean, not if you say false flag attacks, it's not the same as claiming these are fake attacks. And that may also be a reason Alex Jones got his channel removed and he's banned by PayPal, etc. But my point was, I never claimed that. They were claiming that, and I was reporting about what they were reporting about. So without indicating that that's not allowed, I think that it could get your channel removed and your webpage as well.
So this just gets into the details of that. As I said, they are coming towards Iran. But where is this intelligence coming from? The intel, according to Israeli media, appears to have come at least in part from Israel. So this couldn't have anything to do with how Israel and Iran are constantly going back and forth, and Israel and the United States have accused Iran of harboring terrorists that are going to hurt Israel. There's also been some hostile activity taking place between Iran and Israel in recent days, so this is more than likely this alleged Israeli intel is coming as a retaliation to Iran from Israel via the United States. Just another proxy war. And Israel supposedly had provided information on a possible Iranian plot against U.S. targets in the region or U.S. allies. Fox News confirmed this. CNN, citing U.S. officials, reported that intelligence suggested a possible attack on U.S. forces in Syria, Iraq, and at sea. So they're saying there's going to be an attack coming up. They're going to blame it on Iranians. We can go on further. Here you see the Atlantic. The many ways Iran could target the United States. The White House is citing unspecified threats. The specifics are murky, but the escalation potential is real. And again, they mentioned John Bolton.
So how could we prevent this? And John Bolton's preemptive attack plans and bombing Iran plan that would of course lead to reaction of the Russian President Putin, because Iran is an ally country of Russia. But that may be what these people of the UN, the Luciferians, actually want: to reduce the global population to 500 million and rule the world from Jerusalem, to impose a totalitarian global government, to create a crisis big enough to impose that totalitarian global government, satanic Luciferian New World Order, Neue Ordnung, Third Reich. Hitler pursued the same thing. Centralization of power, power to the pedo versus power to the people, power to the peaceful. That's what a global government is really about.
They mention Israel. Iranian forces or their proxies operate close by U.S. and U.S.-backed forces in both Iraq and Syria. Iran routinely threatens to disrupt the world oil trade through the Strait of Hormuz off its coast. Its aligned forces in Yemen and Gaza directly threaten U.S. allies in Saudi Arabia and Israel. So it's funny because this is what it's about: threatening U.S. allies, Saudi Arabia and Israel. If the specific warnings about Iran's intent remain murky, the potential for Iran to threaten the U.S. and allies in the region is serious. Axios reported on Monday that the U.S. was responding to intelligence from Israel, though the Israeli embassy decided to comment. Now, what else do they have here? Iran is perhaps better positioned to harass American allies in the region, namely Israel and Saudi Arabia. Tehran supports the Palestinian militant group Hamas, which in recent days allegedly launched some 600 rockets towards Israel in the territory in the Gaza Strip. They're also saying that Iran could encourage the Houthis in Yemen to start targeting Saudi and Emirati oil shipments. You know how this is just poor, crappy journalism, because they don't give you any context here. It's just saying, this whole article is framed as Iran's the bad guys. They might hurt U.S. allies, namely Israel and Saudi Arabia. No context about the fact that Saudi Arabia has beheaded a 16-year-old kid in the last couple of weeks and crucified their own people recently. These are the type of nations that are our allies, and that's just going unquestioned in this report. Do you understand what I'm saying here? I'm sorry I just got a little loud and bitchy, but it's just so frustrating to see this garbage in the mainstream. It's only one-sided narrative that they push. The two countries have taken over Iran's market share following the imposition of U.S. sanctions. So what you have here is the U.S. implementing sanctions to prevent Iran from being able to do oil business and punishing countries who do oil business with them. And at the same time, supporting the Saudi-led war in Yemen, which has become one of the greatest humanitarian crises of the past few years, with hundreds of thousands of people dead, starving. I mean, it's just insane there. And they're also supporting Israel. Israel regularly is held, responsible, not actually held accountable, but people call them out for human rights violations. And those are the people that the United States and the Western military and media, compliant media, are so afraid that they're going to get disturbed. Now, I'm not saying Iran's perfect by any means, but this is obviously another U.S.-led coup, just like we're seeing in Venezuela. They're attempting to stage a false flag attack, or I guarantee if there is an attack now, I would not trust them if they say Iran decided to attack, especially after all this, when they're bringing the military over there. With this one, B-52 bombers added to the aircraft carrier strike group rushing to the Middle East to confront Iranian threats. So now they're adding even more weapons, even more missiles and planes, and just getting ready for this Iranian attack that they say may come. I don't know. We'll see. We'll have to see how this goes. Michael O'Hanlon is quoted in this article from the Brookings Institution, which is, if you guys know you're NGOs, then that name should set off alarm bells. He says, "I like the decision to the extent I can understand the backdrop to it, because it tells Iran they won't get away with doing something nasty by proxy. We are on to them. That may or may not be sufficient as a deterrent. We have to be careful about assuming that a carrier or bomber can stop a covert operative. But I still favor it." So, well, we'll just have to see how this plays out. I think it's garbage, but I do want to emphasize, guys, if you've been following my work, not just here on the YouTube channel, because again, I tell you guys, I don't always make videos about my articles, but I do text them out. If you join our free text app list, which is underneath the description of this video, then you will always, always, always get my content, new articles, new videos, whatever. This is an article I wrote last spring, over a year ago, when Donald Trump first appointed John Bolton, and it was titled, clearly enough, Donald Trump's appointment of John Bolton means regime change is coming to Iran. The latest neocon warmonger to join the Trump administration does not bode well for the people of Iran. On Thursday, Donald Trump announced that John Bolton, the former official in George W. Bush's administration and former ambassador to the UN, would be his new national security advisor. Bolton, of course, was a war hawk who called for the invasion of Iraq in search of non-existent weapons of mass destruction, and has for years called for invasion of Iran. So his record is already bad enough, but I think that it's clear that the more you look into him, you realize that he's more involved in this than you might realize. In 2009, Bolton said that regime change is, quote, ultimately the only thing that will stop Iran from getting nuclear weapons. So he's made it clear, like, they're after regime change. As recent as 2015, Bolton calls for a joint bombing campaign from U.S. and Israel. Such action should be combined with vigorous American support for Iran's opposition aimed at regime change in Tehran. And Senator Ron Paul at the time quoted, "It concerns me that Trump would put someone in charge who is unhinged as far as believing in absolute and total intervention." So, with the combination of Pompeo and Bolton, this is pretty much a war cabinet. I think this has been said before. But what I want to point out to you most about this whole video here and this whole little article is that John Bolton has already made it clear. Him and former mayor of New York, Rudy Giuliani, have already promised regime change once they came into power. And this was reported by The Intercept last year. So this was back in 2017 whenever Bolton first said that. Just 8 months ago at a Paris gathering, Just 8 months ago at a Paris gathering, Bolton told members of the Iranian exile group known as the Mujahideen Khalq, or MEK, or People's Mujahideen, that the Trump administration should embrace their goal of immediate regime change in Iran and recognize their group as a viable alternative. Quote, "The behavior and the objectives of this regime are not going to change, and therefore the only solution is to change the regime itself," newly appointed National Security Advisor John Bolton told the crowd. And The Intercept also noted that Iranian expatriate journalist Bamin Kalbasi reported that Bolton ended his talk by promising, quote, "And that's why, before 2019, we will celebrate in Tehran." So he basically is telling these people, the MEK, who have been listed as terrorists by some people across the world, and I guess they're the group that they're choosing, just like Guaido in Venezuela. The MEK are the group that the United States wants to use to set up their proxy war and their puppet regime. And at a recent celebration of the Persian New Year, Rudy Giuliani promised the that, quote, if anything, John Bolton has become more determined that there needs to be regime change in Iran and that the nuclear agreement needs to be burned and that you need to be in charge of the country. Giuliani could be heard chanting regime change. And if you need any more evidence, it should also be noted that John Bolton is a member of the Council on Foreign Relations who continues to have influence on the world around us. And he was also a part of the Project for the New American Century, which you guys may remember was enthusiastically promoting the lie about Saddam Hussein's weapon of mass destruction. And also the Project for the New American Century, known as PNAC in 2000, which Bolton was a part of, released a report titled Rebuilding America's Defenses, which outlined a strategy for regime change in Iraq and beyond, and pretty much seemed to predict 9/11. Under a section titled Creating Tomorrow's Dominant Force, they wrote, further, the process of transformation, even if it brings revolutionary change, is likely to be a long one, absent some catastrophic and catalyzing event like a new Pearl Harbor.
The People's Mojahedin Organization of Iran, or the Mojahedin Khalq, Persian, Romanized, Sazmani Mojahedin Khalq-i Iran, abbreviated MEK, MOI or MKO, is an Iranian political militant organization 2728-29, based on Islamic and socialist ideology and advocates overthrowing the Islamic Republic of Iran leadership and installing its own government. 3031-32. It was the first Iranian organization to develop systematically a modern revolutionary interpretation of Islam, an interpretation that differed sharply from both the old conservative Islam of the traditional clergy and the new populist version formulated in the 1970s by Ayatollah Khomeini and his government. 33. The MEK is considered the Islamic Republic of Iran's biggest and most active political opposition group.
So he mentioned WTC, and here you can see these explosives going off below the blast wave, the building collapsing in on itself, basically typical sign of controlled demolitions. And yeah, in this video you can see that WTC was demolished with nanothermite. And Professor Jones reported about it as well. So this is Loose Change 2nd edition. Let's roll from the 50th minute basically. So it's somewhere near the end of the video. And there they show clearly that these explosives go off before the building crumbles. And also other things indicate that video and audio recordings make clear there were explosives before the building collapsed. Going off. Explosions. So, yeah, that's the basic story about 9/11, that the government is lying about the explosives that were in the building, and that's proven beyond any reasonable doubt. And Professor Jones was rented by the government to analyze that thermate dust, and after that he was fired and other things happened. And I don't know if he's controlled the position either, but I doubt it. Perhaps he got $1 million, but then perhaps he would be living in Hawaii or Fiji or something like that. And I think that's not the case. But of course, Alex Jones is a millionaire now. But let's continue the video.
And then less than a year later, 10 of the 18 men who'd signed that paper became part of the Bush administration. and apparently got the catalyzing excuse that they needed to invade Iraq, Afghanistan, Libya, Syria, and more than likely soon Iran. So, yeah, guys, this is just part of the whole thing. And if you think about this quote from that article that says, thus this report, this is the same. And in addition to that well-known Pearl Harbor quote, one of the other things they described in that paper called Rebuilding America's Defenses, they said, quote, thus this report advocates a two-stage process of change, transition and transformation over the coming decades. So maybe the last 15 years of war, violence, and death in the Middle East have been the transition phase, and now John Bolton and Trump are preparing to shift gears and move into the transformation phase, beginning with the invasion of Iran. We'll have to wait and see, but based on all the power players here, I think it's true. Not only is Donald Trump a part of the swamp, hopefully you guys have got that clearly by now, but also that he is part of the same agenda to force war into Iran at the behest, apparently, of Israeli intelligence. That's what they're going off of. Israeli intelligence that's leading the way, guiding them. Surprise, surprise. Yeah, so that's it, guys. Be on the lookout because there might be more propaganda coming your way, and they're going to tell you that it was Iran, and they're also going to try to tell you, as they've already tried to do, that Iran was responsible for 9/11. Iran's responsible for everything. It's either Russia, Iran, or Venezuela. If you want someone to blame your problems on to an American, that's probably the easiest thing to do. So check that out, guys. I will have more videos out coming later this week, and as I said, join Minds to get our exclusive content. We'll have a new article coming out later today that will be exclusively for Minds at first, so you don't want to miss that. And until next time, guys, remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free, and we can wake up more people. We can get past this nonsense, but it's going to take each of us working on our own trauma and seeking solutions. Stop coming here looking for just news and entertainment. Get involved in your community. Start pulling yourself out of these systems, and we can succeed. Until next time, peace.
Okay, the conscious resistance. So we can see what other articles they have. Is Big Pharma to blame for climate change? Well, when you're talking about man-made climate change, so that has to be answered first. The question if it's natural climate change, natural warming, natural warm periods, natural ice age periods, etc. That has to be answered first. And if you're talking about man-made global warming, then of course you cannot leave out space travel and the cancer chemtrails, cloud seeding, sea ice, evergreen aviation, and especially the ionospheric heaters punching holes in the Earth's ionosphere may be among the most important causes for global warming if it exists. And I have not seen any shred of evidence proving that it exists just yet. So I need scientific evidence and not what the NASA Freemasons want to show us. But no, I would say not Big Pharma pushing chemical cancer-causing prescription drugs to reduce the global population. Of course, it's illegal to block a working cure from the public. To reduce the global population with chemical cancer-causing prescription drugs. But they are doing it, it works, and it makes them billions of dollars, of course. The Rockefeller drug laws, the illegal Rockefeller drug laws. Because it's illegal to block a working cure from the public. And they import cocaine under armed guard to pushing these morphine-based, heroin-based, chemical cancer-causing prescription drugs to get people hooked and to reduce the global population with chemicals which have a synergistic effect with cancer-causing electromagnetic radiation, according to Dr. Cyril Smith. Dr. Rick Strassman on the reality and fantasy of DMT. I've heard much positive info about it. Don't know if people also died from it and if they can have a bad trip as well. Don't know if it's hallucinogenic, then I would not take it probably. Derek Bros on spirituality and agorism. Don't even know what agorism is. Agorical. Introducing Isaac Lindenberger from, quote, The Lucid Truth, unquote, podcast. Donald Trump may pardon soldiers who committed murder. Well, if I look at the mainstream media story, it seems like he did the right thing in that case. But it could also fit in with a population reduction policy. Join the conscience, they do that speech error. Join the conscious resistance on minds. Hashtag divest from Facebook. John Bush on the power of kratom and CBD. Global Vaccine Alliance. Quote anti-vax and quote info is a disease should be censored. Well, the list of pandemics caused by vaccinations makes us think otherwise. And so does their Ebola, Lassa, Tegmira, Chimera. You can read more about via Google Wix. Ebola, the word Ebola with the letter G attached to it. Sort of like Gulag, injecting everybody with killer vaccines at gunpoint. It is all prepared, while the rush through killer vaccine producers are legally immune. And in line with that, they had CONOP 88 of the Pentagon covered by CNN. It's still online, that article of CNN, about nuking the zombie hordes. CNN called it Conplan 8888. So you can Google that as well. Intentional Community Conference called hashtag 2 June 2019. Jeffrey Epstein is building on a new island. Well, of course, he can do that, but if he can turn that into another Lolita Island is another matter. They are lying to you about Syria again. And a lot of other things. The government is terroristic, tyrannical, and criminal. Because they have to follow orders from the criminals that also murdered my mother and tortured my teeth out of my mouth. Make no mistake about it, these people are ultra sadists, applying satanic ritual abuse, whether they pretend to be Christians, or rabbis, or Sufis, or atheists. Many of them are Freemasons, so they're Luciferians, NASA Freemasons, for example. And they might not believe in any deity. Perhaps some of them are pursuing a novus ordo seclorum, what do I know? The secular world order. Derek Bros, the path to decentralized communities and healing. Oh, the Peter Leeds worst nightmare. If it is the true path. Free Thinker Radio did HPD lie again about the Tuttle shooting. So that all that you can read on the conscienceresistance.com. Consciousresistance.com. And that concludes this broadcast of 14 minutes 26 seconds. So, calling the IRGC a terrorist group, the official army of Iran, and then sending troops over. How long can that go, right? Is there a way that it could not result in a third Jesuit World War? And what would that way be? An agreement between Trump and Putin? That's one thing. I think perhaps with that, if they would have that, then a world war cannot erupt anymore. But Trump and Putin may both be Jesuit controlled. Actually, Putin may be former KGB, now FSB agents. So you can read about that online as well. And I think that's generally recognized. It's not some kind of secret. I also have a nice picture of that, I guess. Oh yeah, boycott all Monsanto companies. And that includes Unilever, Nestle, Coca-Cola, and Kraft, and Kellogg's. Del Monte, also Pepsi. These are all GMO brands to avoid. That's not the one. Oh yeah, that one's pretty good. So it's called an apron that napkin the Freemasons use. Don't know if it has anything to do with slaughtering people, human sacrifice. Why else would they wear a napkin? Are they stuffing themselves full of tart or something? And they're a fraternity. Why are they a fraternity? Could the G of Freemasonry stand for something other than gnosis or gnosis? For example, gay or global government. Who knows? If it's the secret meaning, then they're not going to tell you all online. That's for sure. So yeah, what it's about preventing World War III, of course. There we see Kerry, famous Skull and Boner, also known as the Brotherhood of Death, synonymous with the Jesuits. According to some, and Illuminati is a Jesuit front. Ik hou mijn mond. And the Jesuits control all intelligence agencies, and all intelligence agencies are Masonic, according to another graphic work of art we find on citizens.action.network on Facebook. So yeah, let's go to these pages and check them out. And if you think anything is in violation of the YouTube policy, please let me know in the comments, then I can remove the video or edit out the part of the video that would be in violation of the YouTube policy. And there are 227 words you cannot say on YouTube, but war is allowed, I think. And so is population reduction, apparently. People that advocate that are not censored by YouTube nor by Google. And of course Google acquired YouTube. And YouTube is not the YouTube, depleted uranium tube. So I'm not going to show the pictures of depleted uranium babies, but I talk about it regularly because many people, millions of people, perhaps even billions, think they are trying to do the same thing they did in Iraq, this time in Iran, pretending they have weapons of mass destruction or using it as a pretense to invade Iran. I've also covered UN. Let's see if that's in these writings I have here. Search on 666. All right. If the word redskin is on Wiki's list of ethnic slurs, then why is it still used in the names of several sports teams in the US? But the part about Luce's trust. Luciferians in the UN bad Quirkemole at 2,558 views, December 18, 2016. Video on YouTube. At one time, the Lucis Trust office was located in New York at 666 United Nations Plaza. They are now located at 866. The Lucis Trust's publishing company was founded in the early 1920s as the Lucifer Publishing Company. The Lucis Trust says that the name was probably chosen to honor Lucifer. The name was changed in 1925 to the Lucis Publishing Company. And then some information about the Baha'i faith. What will Trump do if President Rouhani, continues to transport cancer oil? So if Rouhani continues transports of cancer oil, what will Trump do? Let me know in the comments what you all think. And to prevent a world war for Iran sanctions, Trump is advised not to press ahead with what some would consider illegal sanctions. Iran does not have any nuclear weapon and therefore any sanctions are unjustified. Rouhani is advised not to press ahead with transporting cancer oil to countries Trump has forbidden Iran to transport oil to as part of legal or illegal sanctions, and to make agreements with both Trump and Putin. Trump is advised to have an agreement with Russian President Putin before taking any action. Putin is advised to prevent any type of retaliation if required, to prevent World War III and create universal peace instead. I've already made clear I don't accept anybody supposedly elected with electronic voting because of Tesla's wireless energy, radiant energy technology. Is it possible a false flag attack on one of their military vessels is planned comparable to the sinking of the Lusitania? Well, basically it's like the fourth move in chess. Either an ISIS attack or a false flag type of event comparable to the sinking of the Lusitania. So one of the American vessels over there could get attacked. Or would they attack Iranian vessels transporting cancer oil? And then Russia would attack the US because it's an ally of Iran. And they would argue there's not evidence, not even one nuke in Iran. They were in compliance in the period of the nuclear agreement. So yeah, will against Scalar Orb, Armageddon, Moshiach, Messiah period come to pass? If there's any type of nuclear event, then it's clear people cannot survive that without a radiological water filter. And I think most elite have such a water filter. They realize that people need water daily practically, though they can last a month almost without food. They need water very regularly. So yeah, it said I don't know too much about these false flag attacks. I mean, other than 9/11, WTC demolition. And I'm a conspiracy factist, and I claim it's a conspiracy fact that the WTC was demolished with explosives that were in the building and that were detonated after the cancer-causing Tachyonelus planes were crashed into that building. And I always call them that because they have these flying saucers with the Tachyonator. They could also let planes fly with that. Theoretically, a BMW invention. And they might try to cover up any real thing with something fake and create a world war under the guise of bringing peace to the Middle East, pretending that's the only way to bring peace. A two-state solution. World war cannot occur without a two-state solution, without first splitting these two groups up. Divide to conquer is another strategy they use. So false flag strategy, problem reaction solution strategy, ordo ab cao equals problem reaction solution, and divide to defeat. Perhaps pluribus et unum, I'd have to Google that as well. Divide to conquer, divide to defeat. Equals novus ordo seclorum or something. So that means they'd have to get rid of these countries, also get rid of the US, if they would want to create a global government, to get rid of the old world order. And that's why they are an enemy of the US and in violation of the constitutional oath to protect the country against enemies, foreign and domestic, if they are pursuing such a global government. So it's not the same as pursuing US ruling the world, or Greater Israel or whatever. Though others might argue it is. It's these statements with the equal sign in between are meant like semi-satirical, sometimes deadly serious, but they're meant to simplify things, not necessarily oversimplify. Let's see if there's any equal statement in my writings, and try something vegetarian too. Lang equals en. Nothing can be colder than 0 on the Kelvin scale equals minus 273 Celsius. MSM equals propaganda, for example. Mainstream media equals propaganda. Though some would argue that's funny because MSM differs from propaganda. MSM can be a propaganda tool. And propaganda can be an MSM tool, but they're not the same thing, of course. It's not exactly the same, so that's why you can't use an equal sign in all these cases, you could argue. AMA equals Ask Me Anything. American Marketing Association. Two-state solution equals final solution. Pursued by the Vatican, of course. Continuity of government cog is real, continuity of society is not equals shadow gov is real. NSA equals no such agency. I didn't make that up myself. CIA equals chemtrails in America. I think I didn't make that up myself either. And FBI, well, online we find female body inspectors, but how do we know it's not Frame Bureau International, framed by investigators, or effed by investigators? So these are not necessarily things that I concocted or made up with my gigantic brain myself. Universal peace now. So everything is energy, and we cannot risk an escalation into World War III because of mutually assured destruction, MAD. Weapons of self-destruction being real, WMD. Weapons of mass destruction, weapons of self-destruction. So yeah, 2 o'clock, longer than 1 hour, so I cannot use the YouTube editor. It would be nice if it could be 2 hours or so, that we could edit videos of 2 hours as well. Because usually they're just a bit over 1 hour, my broadcasts. Let's see if my camera works. So then the CPU usage goes up. A hot day in the Netherlands, though this month we've had temperatures that were 6 degrees below the average normal temperature for the time of the year. And of course these floods in Iran coinciding with Trump's sanctions may not be a coincidence either. So geoengineering is real, altering, modifying the jet stream, weather control also with cloud seeding, chemtrail patterns are online, so that's another conspiracy fact, not a conspiracy theory. So I challenge you all to disprove it to me. And I've explained why these are chemtrails and not contrails in previous broadcasts, so I've already seen these websites. It's no proof or evidence. So we can also have a discussion with more than one caller. You can Skype ProLogic999. But I think they want to keep these things secret to get rid of 7 billion people, that I won't get any views, and that YouTube and Google are in on reducing the global population. So I'm not surprised if my video would get censored again. So and I have downloaded all the videos on this channel, and I advise you all to do the same, so you can re-upload them also to other providers. You have Dailymotion, VK, and numerous other video websites. But I think I haven't said anything in violation of the YouTube policy in this broadcast. I've made clear what is not allowed and what is in violation of the YouTube policy in this broadcast. And I think that's on topic, that it has to do with this topic about false flags, and that this wouldn't be an okay broadcast if it wouldn't be in it, basically. Of course, you could argue that it's a matter of opinion, so you can say, wow, this broadcast is terrible, horrible. And on the other hand, people can easily turn off the video if they're offended by something or they think it's a lie. Let them prove to me it's a lie. And if you find anything offensive and you have a good explanation, then I will remove this video myself, so it doesn't have to result in a strike. Because I'm in good standing with YouTube and I'd like to keep it that way. And yeah, vegetarian, I could upload more videos about that. There's a good documentary, What the Health, that explains it also, why it's better and healthier to become vegan, because animal protein, especially animal fat, increases your cancer risk. So as long as you take enough vitamin B12, it's healthiest to be vegan. Many top sport athletes are also vegan, also superstars, movie stars, etc. Many famous vegetarians and vegans out there. So, and the reason for this video is basically to ask you all what you think will happen, and if you have any information about a possible false flag attack. So that's tied to these drills, these exercises. So then it's interesting to see a list, if possible, to what exercises are going to take place in the US. Military exercises, police exercises, firemen, that type of thing. Is there a list somewhere where we can see how that exercise will take place in Dallas or in Phoenix or whatever? I don't know if such a list exists. I can Google it. This might as well become a 2-hour broadcast or whatever, it doesn't matter. Exercises, Rails US. Well, then I also Google on false flag. According to Wikipedia, the Free CIA edited encyclopedia, CIA Vatican edited encyclopedia, a false flag is a covert operation designed to deceive. The deception creates the appearance. Crisis actors, deep state, false flag, the rise of conspiracy theory code. When drills go live. Oh yeah, I was gonna review Twitter hashtag false flag. Meet Lucky Larry reminded me of Leisure Suit Larry. And that game was published in 1987 to 2009. And yeah, with the PSYOPs, it can all be part of a big program. For example, now we see a game called World War III entering the arena, a video game. So if you search on World War III, you will find that game, no doubt. And not people that claim that World War III is about to happen over Iran. Let's see if I Google World War III. Oh yeah, I covered this in my previous broadcast, that we get 9 out of 10 results are all Daily Express articles. So we don't see these YouTube videos of people. I can click on videos. There we see the game overview, World War III official website, worldwar3.com. But we do see 2 videos. First one, oh, this is also about multiplayer. So the first 2 are both game results. The first 3 of them are, all 3 are referring to the game World War III. Produced by 51. Actually, the first 4 results are. And then the 5th video is what are the chances of World War III on YouTube. Both they've planned that you could argue it's 100%, all it takes is for them to push a button. So it's best to be prepared anyhow. Are you prepared for the Bible's Armageddon? Perhaps no one without a Tesla plasma shield is. So I doubt if they can control them now. During a world war situation, things are different. And I also remember that World War III was Google search #1, or YouTube search or YouTube search #1. And now I don't see that anywhere in the list of Google searches. Top 100, for example. Top Google searches as of April 2019. ahrefs.com. So what's #1? #1 keyword is Facebook, 2 YouTube, Amazon, Gmail, Google. Let's see if there's anything with war in it. Warned. So war is not in the top 100 Google searches, supposedly. Let's see, YouTube. So the game is not in it either then. Search engine journal.com. Top 10 worldwide queries. Eminem also has a rap video with 50 million views, almost, at the time I watched it. They make me cough. And earlier they were attacking my eye with the remotely controlled insects. So high mems of DARPA are real. Hybrid insect microelectric mechanical systems. You can Google it also, but I think it's too disgusting a subject for this broadcast. And Eminem rapped about Trump flying in Air Force One while the nukes drop or something. So it's good to watch if you haven't seen it yet. Other than that, the rhythm section is missing, but it's pretty good anyway. So where's the top 100? I changed into YouTube searches. Again on ahrefs.com. ASMR, I also have an ASMR video, but I don't know all these others. Searching on war. Not even the word warning is on this page. The top YouTube searches. And this is a top 100. So people are not searching on it anymore after the conditioning. By control the position, fake resistance, to round up any real resistance and prevent real resistance, to the Jesuits and Masons, of course. So, interesting. So they were reporting year in, year out, also about Iran World War. They had some CIA guy, not Richard Goodyear, it was some other guy. And he predicted World War also with a date, but it didn't come true. So many people are tired, I think, of false predictions, and they would see it as warmongering, etc. Which may be a good thing if it leads to people buying a radiological water filter and being prepared. If the government is prepared with emergency preparedness, why shouldn't we be? So then we can read this thing to close the broadcast.
Israel strikes Syria after rockets fired at Golan Heights. News.com 4 hours ago. Jerusalem. The Israeli military said its aircraft struck Syrian army targets on Sunday after rockets were fired at the Golan Heights, and Israel attacks Syrian targets near occupied Golan Heights. Al Jazeera.com 3 hours ago IDF strikes Syria, killing 3. After rockets fired at Golan Heights. The Times of Israel 7 hours ago 2 rockets fired from Syria at Golan, no injuries. International News 13 hours ago 2 missiles fired toward Israel's Golan Heights from Syria. International The Jerusalem Post 16 hours ago View all. 2018 Gaza border protests. 183 dead and 9,204 shot, hit by shrapnel, or tear gas canisters, including 6,106 injured by snipers, leading to life-changing wounds in many. Wiki/2018_Gaza_border_protests, Gaza border protests, 190 killed and 28,000 injured in a year of bloodshed. TheGuardian.com Almost 29,000 Palestinians have been injured since the protests began, and more than 190 killed. Women and children make up more than 1 in 4 of those injured and killed.
So these citizens are locked up like rats in Gaza cage. They can't leave even if they'd want to. And why not go for a one-state solution and equal rights for all, in return for the Temple Mount that's considered the third holiest and the holiest place, third holiest place by Muslims and holiest place by the Israelis. The Jewish people consider the Temple Mount the holiest place, and of course Muslims have Mecca, the pilgrimage, etc. So yeah, I think that they don't want to do that because they want to reduce the global population to 500 million, also clear from the book quotes, $1 Million Georgia Guidestones under the pseudonym Robert Christian. More about it in my previous broadcasts. So this is it for now. I don't have information about possible false flags yet, but it is clear designating the official Iranian army as a terrorist group, and also the 28 EU member state countries disagreeing with Trump on annexing the West Bank and Gaza Strip, etc., and doing away with the Iran nuclear deal, and similar to Iraq, claiming that Iran has, or they want to prevent Iran from producing a weapon of mass destruction. That's even more absurd than claiming that they have weapons of mass destruction already, which they don't. They don't have even 1 nuke, so they cannot produce evidence, not even on 1 nuke. And then there is the fact that they can remotely torture and kill people, extort people with these directed energy torture weapons. And usually that's left out by people, but that makes a fair trial impossible. And perhaps it makes it, the CIA's Project Mockingbird makes it impossible for the mainstream media to report about certain matters. So we have to look at the source of the trouble, who the real bad guys are, and not blame whole countries. And we shouldn't choose sides, only the side of the human race and the animals on our planet, to bestow maximum fulfillment upon everyone. We shouldn't spend $1 trillion on revising nuclear arsenal, but on controlling all factors that control aging, achieving negligible senescence before we all die from aging. And that's only if we're lucky and if there is no third Jesuit World War. So yeah, everybody can think about what they can do to prevent such a world war, and I think an agreement between Putin and Trump is one of the most important things that must be realized before they take any action on Iran. Also before sending troops. If the Russian president disagrees with that for some reason, then it should be clear why to Trump, and what the possibilities are, what the best possibilities are for the human race as a whole, for the US, for Russia, Europe, etc. for Iran, the countries in the Middle East where these illegal wars are still going on. The cost of war.com meter is still going up, 4.8 trillion, and over 5,000 dead American soldiers, over 1 million dead Iraqis, depleted uranium, children, etc. I think many people, also US citizens, now think that a preemptive strike on Iran is unjustified. Only 14% of the US citizens support it, according to a recent poll, so that's top, that's really great. So that minimizes the risk of a world war and increases our chances to produce universal peace. So yeah, that's it for this broadcast. I'm gonna enjoy the sunshine, and thank you all for watching. You know, Skype ProLogic999. Please like, subscribe, and share this important broadcast on your timeline. Also look if there are more important videos on my channel, try Something.Vegetarian, and tune in next time for universal peace and a better future. Thank you all for watching. Universal peace, and do something healing. Having sex is a great idea. That may be the most healing thing people can do. Sperm is healthy. Having sex, masturbation is also healthy. And there may be sexual suppression, thought suppression, and psychic suppression. So decalcifying your pineal gland, taking stuff that detoxifies, air cleaner with an ionizer, a normal water filter for tap water. Because we use a lot of air and water, it has to be clean. And so purify your tap water as well. That's my tip for you all. For universal peace, check in next time on trysomething.vegetarian. Still no chat remarks, so I think there's an algorithm to block my channel. And another important point is on that live YouTube page where you can see the live videos that are going on now. Lots of videos are not shown on that page. For example, the Yellow Vest protest still going on Saturdays, especially in France, perhaps on Sundays as well, because during the rest of the week they usually work. They're basically workers. Populists, some would say. So, thank you all for watching. I already said that 3 times now. So, what else is good to say? Carpe diem. Safety first. Recovery begins with non-compliance. Test everything you learn, question every source of information, and remember to mistrust authority, because some people were killed for questioning authority. And do stuff to create universal peace.